resentment. So the hurt feelings that slander and gossip can cause. So as we begin, could I please ask someone to tell me what gossip is? Does anyone have a good definition? What do you think it is?
It's when you spread a word that you've heard.
Yeah. Well done. You spread something that you've heard. What else?
Is like talk behind someone's back.
Yep. So talking behind someone's back when they're not there. Good. Okay. Does it usually involve something that's not true? Yeah, I think so, quite often. So there's an understanding, there's an idea that gossip isn't such a big deal, but that's actually not true. It is a really big deal, and that's why I've called it a deadly poison. So let's go on. Could I please ask somebody to read that definition? Can anyone see it pretty well? Have you?
Casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed or being true, as being true, aka distraction, idle talk, heresy, scandals. Sorry, I can't see that one.
Tattles.
Tattles and etc.
That's right. So it's when people casually will speak about other people in detail, particularly about things that haven't been confirmed to be true. Okay, so these aren't facts, these are theories. I heard this. Apparently, this happened. He said this to her. All right? But we don't know that it happened. So, what problems do you think might come with that? If everybody's just going around having little chats saying, oh, I heard this happened, I heard this happened, what might go wrong? Disaster, why?
You're right. Because usually you think of the story based on what the person said or what you've been told, and it's like a completely different thing.
Absolutely. So it's hearsay. It's hearsay means it's just what someone said. But when it spreads, people start dealing with it as though it's a fact. Okay. And sometimes it's a terrible fact and it never happens. So, for example, I could say, God forbid, but I could say that I heard David punched his brother in the face. Okay. I heard that. And then I tell you, and you tell your friend, and then by the end of the night, everyone is sure that David punched his brother in the face. What happens then? Everyone looks at David like he's rude, like he's mean, and he hasn't done anything. He doesn't even have a brother in the first place. See? So that's why it's really not fair to the person that's being spoken about. So, does this mean we should just never speak about anything ever? Obviously not, right? So, what is venting? Who can tell me what venting is? So, when you're speaking to a friend, what is venting? Yeah.
Hold on 1 second, just because we're looking. Give the mic.
I'd say venting is like going on a tangent, like just talking for no kind of reason, and it's just like thoughts in your head and just everything being blurting out words pretty much. Sometimes it
Okay.
doesn't really make sense.
All right. Interesting. So, what is the difference between gossiping and venting then? What do you think? Is there a difference? Yeah.
Inventing, you're talking like about yourself, but in gossiping, you're talking about other people.
Okay, that's interesting. I really like that answer. All right. So when you're venting, you're talking about yourself. I saw this. I felt this. I'm hoping for this. I'm concerned about that. But when you are gossiping, you are speaking about another person. What if you're venting about another person? What if you're saying, this happened at lunchtime and they said this to me and I felt really hurt? Is that gossiping or venting?
I'd say that's venting. It's more about how you felt as a result of the conflict rather than, talking about the individual themselves and like, oh, like I hate them. They are this and this and this. It's more, they said this, which resulted in me feeling like, really bad.
Absolutely. And remember when we said the definition is when we're speaking about things that aren't facts, that's gossiping. But if you're saying the facts and you were there and they happened to you and you're not judging the person, you're just saying this is how it made me feel, that's okay. Because we have to talk about our feelings. We need to get it off our chest, all right? That's a healthy thing to do. As long as you're not punching the person with your words as you get it off your chest. Okay. So, venting happens really easily, and it happens by accident, not venting. There's nothing wrong with venting. Gossiping happens really easily, unfortunately, and it happens by accident. Okay? So, could I please ask someone to read that? Someone who's very good at seeing? Do your glasses help, or?
No, look. It begins under the pretext of conversing, of discussing some business, but then we proceed imperceptibly to an altogether unnecessary, empty, and sinful conversation, like a deeply rooted infection. This sickness does not easily submit to healing. It has penetrated all layers of social and private life. It is active in people of every age and gender, every class and social position, and has not even spared monasteries.
Yeah. So the reason I say this is gossiping, unfortunately, is so common that there is a belief that there's nothing wrong with it, that it's completely okay, that it's just a way to connect. All right? That's not the case. It's common, yes, but it's also a cancer. Okay? It's a horrible thing and it destroys us on the inside. So we shouldn't do it. Does it really matter that much? You know, everyone does it. I'm just trying to connect with my peers. Does it matter so much if I partake in those conversations? I think it does. So here are 3 reasons why. This is from the Gospel of Matthew. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it on the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. So everything said in secret, everything said for no reason, everything unnecessary, everything bitter, you have to explain one day why you said it. And if the reason is they were doing it too, God is kind, but we can't abuse that kindness. Another reason to choose your words wisely. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. So the tongue is a small part of our body, but it wields a lot of power. It can give life. Apparently, if you speak nicely to plants, they grow better, they thrive. And if you speak really harshly to them, they die more quickly. We know that that's true for people, right? If you're very kind and gentle, it raises people up strong. If you're very harsh, it can weaken them. All right, so we need to choose our words wisely. Third reason. So this is by Saint Isaac the Syrian. I don't mean to scare you, but I've put this in here just to completely throw out the idea that there's nothing wrong with gossiping. All right. So gossip is a heavy burden, a heavy yoke for the mind, a heavy yoke for the soul, a heavy yoke for the heart, a heavy yoke for the entire body. Gossip is the food of demons, the drink of hell, the fuel of the fire of Gehenna, which is hell again. So it's not a casual chat, bit of fun. Absolutely not. So we need to choose our words wisely. In fact, I think there was a monk who put a pebble. Do you know who? A saint. Yeah, there was a saint who put a pebble in his mouth. Maybe it's a bit of an extreme way, but the idea is before you speak, think, is it worth taking the pebble out? If it's not, put the pebble back in. All right. So our words have immense power. We need to be careful with them. So, quiz question. Is it still gossiping if you say something good about someone behind their back? So they're not there and you are speaking about them, but you're saying something good. What do we think? Okay, I like that. I want us to discuss it a little bit more. Any other thoughts?
Hello. Look, I could be wrong, but I always feel with gossip, there's always a hint of bad intent. Like you're always trying to sort of make that person look worse or not present them in a nice way. So if you're saying good things about a person, could that be perceived as probably praising that person? Like you're recognizing their achievements, you're recognizing something good that they've done? I don't know.
Okay, yep.
I feel like when it comes to talking about somebody, like a few weeks ago, we spoke about intent and how intentions are sort of, where the gray area is. I feel like when looking at the question, the first thing I thought was like, obviously it's not bad if I'm speaking well about somebody, but I feel like it also has to do with your intentions. Like you said, I have no idea who would sort of praise someone with bad intentions. I don't know how that works, but I feel like if it's coming from a good place and you're genuinely just speaking well of somebody or praising them, then I don't think it's a bad thing.
Okay, good. All right, so I agree. I think it's good to give credit where credit is due. So if you see someone doing a good thing and you say, "Hey, this person did a good thing," I think that's awesome. That's beautiful. What if you heard that someone did a good thing, and then you decided, you know what, just for the sake of being part of a conversation, I'm just going to spread this. It's a good thing that he probably did. Why can't I just share this thing that may or may not be true? Is that wrong? Is that right? You just heard that someone did a good thing. You don't know whether it's true. Yeah. If you know it's true, then it's not gossip. You're just stating a fact, and you're that's a good thing to acknowledge a good thing. That's great.
I was just gonna say, I agree that everything is intention, because it could be like, are you passing it on because you want to find out more information about whether they did it or not, and then where does this conversation go? So it could be that you bring up something good that they did, but you bringing up their name in itself opens up the conversation to then talking about other things that they may or may not have done.
Yep.
So it's like just the act of bringing up someone's name and their presence opens up that door to, maybe you're saying something good, then maybe the other person goes like, oh yeah, like you say, oh, they did this good thing, and they'll be like, oh, but you know, I heard they did this before, and then the conversation shifts. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, it just depends, like, also who you're talking to and where you can see this conversation going.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I think as well, sometimes when we go out and say something about a person, at times we could unfortunately be doing it out of jealousy. So you're like spreading that news. It's like, oh yeah, did you hear so and so bought a house? Like
sarcastically?
Yeah, like I don't mean to be that like cunt in the room, but like, you know how our parents would like always teach us, oh, like giving evil eye, and like people spread it with like bad intention. Like, yeah, it's as if it's a good thing, like they're saying something nice about you, but within themselves it's like out of a place of jealousy, or it's like a not so nice place. Yeah. Sorry? Envy, yeah. So you're not doing it with good intent. So I think, yeah, intention is the key here.
Okay.
So yeah, I think sometimes you could be saying something nice about someone, like, oh yeah, well, they did so well, they bought a house, they did this, but you don't really actually mean that. You're like saying it out of envy.
It's a good point. So we can agree on some basic answers. If it's true and it's a good thing and you're sharing it from a place of love, that's okay. If you're not sure if it's true, best not to say. If you feel that you're sharing this not out of love, but just because you want to have a conversation about this person and you have this icky feeling about it, probably best not to. Yeah. Really good test, Asani actually mentioned this before, is would you be embarrassed if the person that you were speaking about was there and could hear what you were saying? If you would be embarrassed, then probably it's not the nicest. It's not the best thing to be saying. All right, so a story about why gossiping matters, why it's a big deal. Mina, would you like to read for us? Thank you.
There was once a woman who went to confession and was proud to inform her priest that she was a good person. She was a loving mother. She never cheated on her husband or her taxes. She attended church regularly, etc. The only thing was she engaged in innocent gossip. Nothing serious, mind you. She wasn't its source. She merely passed it on. Anyway, since she considered that it wasn't very important, she asked to be forgiven by her priest and go her way. The confessor told her that she needed to do 3 things. The first was to go to the marketplace, purchase 10 pigeons, place them in a cage, and return them to the church. Bewildered, she nevertheless did what she was told. Upon returning, the priest told her to open the cage and allow the pigeons to fly off. And so the woman abided by the second requirement. What is the third thing I have to do to be forgiven? Was a question she posed to her priest. Ah, said the godly man, if you want to be forgiven, you must find the 10 pigeons that flew from the cage and bring them back to me. The woman protested that this was an impossible task, seeing that the pigeons flew off in different directions. How could she possibly bring them back to the priest? The priest proceeded to tell her that the gossip is evil, because once it leaves one's mouth, it can never be taken back. It is passed on to others who put their own spin on things and in turn pass it on to others. Gossip can never be taken back.
So, an interesting perspective. Once you say something that you don't know is true, it can then be slightly altered and slightly altered and slightly altered and end up as a negative story. Okay, you never know where it will end up, and you never know in what form it will end up, and it's not as simple as going back and saying, actually, everyone, I wasn't sure. All right? So it really matters, because the consequences of our words matter. So whenever you feel like saying something and you're like, oh, it's private, it's just between me and this person, remember, it's not. It's pigeons that are going to fly off in every direction and possibly hurt another person. So this was how to deal with gossip. And so far we've just spoken about what is gossip. How to deal with gossip. Here are some strategies. Number one, count your blessings. Like we said before, gossiping can come from a place of jealousy or being unhappy with our own lives, so we're speaking about others. If we are very thankful with our own lives, we won't feel the need to be involved or interested or obsess over the lives of others. Number two, if you find that you often succumb to negative peer pressure, try positive peer pressure. So surround yourself with friends who lead by example, who don't allow those topics to come up, who maybe are more willing to speak up than you are. So for example, if I know that when I'm with my friends and if they start to gossip, I don't have the courage to say anything, I would maybe find some friends who do speak up. That way they cover my weaknesses instead of making everyone worse. That's not good for anyone. So, be mindful of your words and your own shortcomings. This one is twofold. Number one, before you speak, if you think, I'm about to say something here, it makes a difference, should I say it or not, you'll probably speak less and you'll probably speak better. Part two of being mindful is being mindful of your own shortcomings. I believe strongly that if we can see ourselves clearly in the mirror, we will be much, much, much more slow to judge our neighbors. Okay? Because we will realize that those spiritual boils and pimples that we're pointing out are on us as well. So we would realize it's so silly to point them out in other people. And this links to the next point. Pray so that your heart may be humbled. How do we see ourselves clearly so that we don't judge others? We pray. Okay, God will help us to realize gently that we need all the compassion and mercy of others as well, and we should extend that mercy too. Next, listen with love. So a common thing that comes up is, okay, when my friends start gossiping and I don't want to gossip, what do I do? Okay? Maybe the right answer isn't saying, be quiet, guys. That's not right. Okay? Maybe it is, but maybe sometimes it isn't. So an alternative solution is to listen with love. Underneath the gossip, often there is a cry for help. All right? Often there's someone saying, I was really hurt by this person. Or I'm really upset for some reason. Okay, and if you listen, you say, oh, interesting. Why does that matter to you? Why do you say that? Why do you care about that? I'm curious. You might find out that your friend is hurt and they don't know how to say I'm hurt, so they're pointing out another person, another situation. So you can go beyond the gossip, ignore it completely, listen with love, and you might be able to be a good friend to whoever is unfortunately sharing that. And we'll share this somewhere, maybe on the Instagram or something, this slide, later on. So remember, we're called to love our neighbors as ourselves, and gossiping, of course, isn't loving. We're meant to build one another up, not tear each other down. And if we speak and whisper about one another in private, we are the body of Christ, but we would be the body working against itself. okay, damaging itself. And we know that a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. All right, so let's be like armor that covers one another and strengthens one another instead of tearing one another down. A brother helped by a brother is a strong city. And that's what paradise is. When we have communion and we are connected to one another and we feel, I have a part to play in this, and my brother has a part to play in my salvation, and I'm part of an ecosystem, right? We realize that that's what heaven is. Okay, and heaven isn't the arm turning against the leg and the tongue turning against the liver. It's the whole body of Christ working together. So, to conclude, gossiping is a serious sin. It harms you, it harms the people that you speak about, and it ought to be taken seriously. So, in Jesus' own words, there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known. Whatever you have spoken in the dark will be heard in the light, and what you have spoken in the ear in inner rooms will be proclaimed on the housetops. So remember when we said, if the person you were speaking about was there, would you be embarrassed? They will eventually hear what you said. One day, every secret will be revealed. So let's try to not have secrets if possible. Nothing that we can be ashamed of. And it's okay, we're all sinners, I get it. But you don't need to be ashamed if you've repented. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you've done, as long as you've repented, it's gone. Don't worry about that being a secret, that's fine. So, and finally, what's the solution instead of the body of Christ fighting against itself? I beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Okay, so glory be to God. And I guess we can have a discussion or some questions. Up to you. And really quickly, next week we're going to talk about slander, which is a type of gossip where particularly negative things are said about another person. But Mina will tell us about that next week.
So, yes, as Egyptians, we tend to gossip a lot about each other, unfortunately. What about when it comes to like gossiping about like celebrities and news that you hear of? Is that more acceptable, or is that just as bad as speaking of people that you know?
I don't know, but I feel like the boys up the back might know. Do you want to ask it again, Philip?
So, I mean, it's like we know it's not good to speak of each other, right? Like to gossip about each other. But what about, say, celebrities? Like it's so hard to avoid the news and what's happening in the
Yeah.
world. So is that just as bad?
Yeah. Yeah, because celebrities there, they gossip a lot.
Sorry?
They gossip a lot. Celebrities.
No. I'm saying, is it wrong to gossip about celebrities and what's going on in their life?
Yes.
Why?
We shouldn't be talking about other people. Gossiping about other people.
No matter who they are, they're still a person. You don't deserve to talk about them. You can't judge. So even if they're famous, even if they weren't known, like you can't talk about them like you know their personal life or something. You know what I mean?
Even if the news writes about it?
Yeah. The news could be fake. You never know.
Very true. What's that publication? News.com.
What do you do if you've been the subject of gossip?
Good question. So, what kind of things would have been said? Because it's either gossip or it's slander. So, are you talking about somebody saying something very negative on purpose, or just kind of people talking about what you do for no reason?
Well, I'm talking about, you gave the example of the person who'd be standing there embarrassed.
Mm.
What do you do as the embarrassed person?